second technique that we can do to do periapical radiographs is called your bisecting the angle technique. Now ideally we prefer to do the parallel technique because we've got the run holder to guide us and it's much more accurate. But sometimes you have no option but to use your bisecting the angle technique, especially if you have a patient with a very small mouth that you cannot put the run holder in, and your dentulous patient or a child. Now what is my basic principle of my bisecting the angle technique? Your form is positioned against the lingual surfaces of the tooth. The central ray is directed perpendicular to the imaginary line that bisects the angle between the long axis of the tooth and the form. So it's much more difficult than using your parallel technique. And the parallel technique is much more accurate. Now if we do the bisecting the angle technique, what I usually use is what we call a snap array holder for the patient to hold the form, because we don't have a run holder now to keep it. So if this is my anterior form, front of my form, it's going to face the X-ray tube. The dot still towards the occlusal surfaces, and I'm going to, if I want to take my two central incisors, I'm just going to clip my form in here, and the patient is going to hold the form. Okay. I'm going to take my two central. First thing is the position of the patient's head. Mid-sagittal plane perpendicular to the floor. Your elytragus line should be parallel to the floor if we do the maxillary regions. Now, I'm going to position it over the area that we want. That is your two central incisors. The patient's going to hold it here. It's going to hold this with the right hand. And when we position the form, we make sure that it extends about 1.5 centimeters past the crowns of the tooth, because if I put it much higher up I can miss the crowns, and if I put it too low down again I can miss the apex of the tooth. So just make sure that it covers it. Now we have to get the angle between the long axis of the tooth and your form, and we have to divide that by means of an imaginary line. So my form is like this. That's the long axis of the tooth, and here's my bisecting line. Okay. So what I have to do now, what I usually do is, I first get my vertical angulation. And I've got my vertical angulation. I just direct my cone to my form, and my central ray should go through the apex of the tooth. The apex of the tooth, my central ray goes through the apex of the tooth. And you can see automatically, so if we do the maxillary region, it's always a positive vertical angulation. That's it. In horizontal angulation, your ray should be perpendicular to the buccal surfaces of the tooth. If I look at my angulation now, let's see where that line is. That line is it on 65?
It's on 60. It's on 60.
It's about 60 degrees. Okay, it's about 60 degrees positive angulation. So my vertical angulation will be 60 degrees. If I want to do my lateral, usually you clip it. If I do the patient's right hand side, we make sure that we clip it with the left hand. It's easier for the patient to hold. I want to do this one here. Hold it like this. This is clip down for me. Just form is like this. The tooth. There's a long axis of the tooth. You must always make sure that our central ray is directed perpendicular to the imaginary line, not perpendicular to the form, but perpendicular to the imaginary line between the long axis of the tooth and the form. Center a bit higher up because we don't want to miss anything. So what's going to happen if I do this? I'm going to miss the apex. If I put it too high up, I'm going to cut part of the crowns off. So that is your lateral, and if I want to do my canine, get my canine in the center. Okay. That is if we do the maxillary anterior region, then we can do the same for the patient's left hand side, premolar and your molar region. Here's the posterior form. Clip it. Dot still towards the occlusal surfaces of the tooth. Position it. Patient's gonna hold it. And get my 5 in the center of the form. So this, right? This is my bisecting line. And just make sure. Sorry. Okay. Always stand behind the tube. You can see that it covers your whole form and your ray is perpendicular. So if I'm going to do that, I'm going to get overlapping of the teeth. And then if I want to do but further back, just make sure that I get all my molars in. Okay? Now 7 is in the center. Push the patient's head down. If you look at your angulation, we started with about 65, but now as we go further back in the mouth, the angulations decrease. See, it's about 40, 45 there. 40, 50, about, no, this is about 30 degrees. So as we go further back in the floor of the mouth, your angulations decrease. I can do the same for the patient's upper left-hand side, the premolar region and the molar region. Now, if I want to do the mandibular region, I want to take my 4 incisors. Okay, the dot is still towards the occlusal surfaces. Now the first thing that we have to do now, the patient position is going to change. So the line from the tragus of the ear, the line from the corner of the mouth to the tragus of the ear should be parallel to the floor when your patient's mouth is open. So I have to get the patient a little bit back to the chair, a little bit back. They open. So the line from the corner of the mouth to the tragus of the ear should be parallel to the floor when the mouth is open. This in. Okay, can you hold this one? So my form is like this, tooth is like this. This is my bisecting line. You see automatically my tube is facing up now. And I go through the apex of the tooth, and your apex is about here, just below your apex. I'm just going to a little bit down. See, we must always check to see that it's in position, because it's not very comfortable, and you find sometimes that patients tend to lift the form in the mouth. We miss the apex of the tooth. Your apex about 2 millimeters above the lower border of your mandible. Like that, and you can see automatically your tube is facing upwards now, because it's now your mandibular region. Always it's a negative vertical angulation. See, automatically it's up, and it's about 25 degrees. If I want to do the canine, so I'll just position it. Let's do this side here. Flip it from the opposite hand. Uncomfortable? Okay, let's try this side here, because it just cuts into the floor of the mouth.
Yes.
Okay. Try to keep it for me. I know it's very uncomfortable. Try to keep it down. Let's just position it for you. Okay. Let's make sure that it covers your whole form. We stand in front of your tube. That is your canine area. And this is to do the premolars and the first molar on your right hand side. So you clip it from the left hand side. Patient holds it with the left hand. Okay. Just sorry, I'm not gonna. Okay. You can see your form is almost parallel to the tooth, so there is very little angle. The only thing is that we must always make sure that the patient keeps it down, otherwise we're going to miss the apex of the tooth. So if I want to do the molar region now, molar region. See, with the molar region, your form is almost parallel to the tooth. So if we look at the angle, there's very little angle. It's between about 5 to 10 degrees, because your form is almost parallel to the tooth. So if we start with your bisecting the angle technique, your maxillary anterior region, we started at about 65, and as we go further back in the mouth, the angle decreases. When we come to our mandibular molar region, there's very little, because your form is almost parallel to the tooth, so the angle is about 5 to 10 degrees. That is your basic rule. It's not an easy technique to do. It's not that accurate, because most of the time what you can do is you either get elongation because you have insufficient vertical angulation, or you have foreshortening. So ideally we prefer to do the parallel technique, but because we can't always do the parallel technique, you must also know how to do the bisecting the angle technique. Ik kan wel zien dat ze af en toe wat dan
Kijk, dan is het doodspoor, dus het iemand ik verder zijn ook niet doen.
Nee, dat is wel apart, dat is niet aan dat is die kant. Dat is in de wand, dat is
Dus ik kan nu staan.
I'm going to show you.